This conference will now be recorded.
Sweet. Okay, well, I'm really excited to be here and to be talking about, I think we can probably get started now. There's enough past the time. I'm excited to talk a little bit about kind of what I like doing in creating content and knowing what to spend time developing. So let's see. So who am I? A little bit about me. My name is John Krasick, and I run a digital marketing company called Funnel Press. I help small companies build websites, sales funnels, and digital automations so that they can multiply their time and multiply their impact. So I've been studying and developing websites since 2015, and I love it. It's so great. I'm excited to share just a small amount of what I've learned and hopefully help you guys to multiply your time so you can multiply your impact in your organizations. Okay, I'd love to hear a little bit from you guys. So I'd love to hear about you. What's your name? What's your business? Why are you here? And what has your experience with marketing been like? So let's go with Elias. Let's start off with you and go from there.
Yeah, so Elias Bishop. I've been in business development, government affairs, relations, lobbying for the past about 10 or so years plus. I'm interested because I'm looking to create a consultant firm that focuses on government relations and possibly business development. So might need a website. Definitely have had some experience with marketing anyway. I mean, just being able to sell and market on different levels, whether it's customers or to a variety of audiences, whether it's other people in an industry that I'm in or to government, or just even the general public. So marketing is extremely important. So even if I'm not doing a website, which I will need to be, I think we all can benefit from knowing how to dial in our marketing side. So yeah, excited to learn what you have.
Cool, awesome. Going down the list, Ryan Peck, you want to go?
Yep. So again, Ryan Peck. The name of my business is Bold. We specialize in material handling and supply chain. Real reason I'm here, one, I'm definitely interested in meeting you, learning about your business and what you enjoy doing, and then two, I'm always looking to expand and understand how I can better market my business. And your last question, my experience with marketing has been very poor. I've worked with several different firms, individuals, and I just feel like I've never really got what I've needed out of it. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Cool. Awesome. Renee, let's go with you.
Hi, I'm Renee Krasick, and
yep, there you go. Yep.
My business is called A New Health and Wellness, and I am just really committed to people having a quality of life, and a lot of times that means quality of health first, and then after that. But what I found is that quality of health really depends upon your quality of your relationships and your emotions and your stress level, and so all of that makes a quality of health. And so I am here at this Believe because I am just excited about all of the things that Believe is doing. And then with you, John, I'm very excited about all the things you have been learning, and it's just amazing the detail with which I've seen you go into real in depth about how to make people's marketing work. And so my experience with marketing previous to knowing you was extremely poor as well. And now I'm just like really kind of caught up in your enthusiasm and move forwardness, and I can really see a vision. And so thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. Thanks. Let's see. Casey, are you at a spot you want to jump in and hear about you?
I might not have very good signal, but my name is Casey Nielsen. I'm trying to be an influencer, so I'm just here to learn how I can better get my name out there and things like that. So, trying to figure out how to do that. So that's why I'm here.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Is there anybody else that wants to go that hasn't? I think we've got everybody except perhaps Austin, but I think he was on a call. So
Sam had to hop off. He said that he couldn't hear, so he's just restarting. He said he'll be back in a minute.
okay, maybe we'll come back to him and we'll go from there. Okay. So my next question for you guys is this, and just something to think about as we're going through this presentation. What do these things have in common? And so we're going with wedding, ladder, and traffic. So just think about those as we go through this presentation. All right, so how to know what to focus on when you're creating content. And there's a ton out there. Like, you could spend all of your time all day creating content, and to really make that effective, though, we want to know what is the strategy behind what we're doing, right? What is the business behind the business of creating your content, and why are we doing that? So to do that, I want to zoom out a little bit and a little bit about the strategy for your content, and that really kind of gets broken down into two components. The first one is traffic, or getting additional eyeballs onto your company and what you're selling. So the 3 B's of getting traffic. When it comes to getting traffic, we can break it down into these 3 main categories. One, we can buy traffic, we can borrow traffic, and we can build traffic. And really, as far as I've seen, everything comes down to one of these 3 different categories, and they're fundamentally a little different. So let's jump into buying traffic. Buying traffic is just what you expect. You go to a company that has lots of traffic and you pay them to send some people your direction. Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads. There's some great pros and cons for buying traffic. One of them is, it's excellent for testing new markets, or for running targeted sales funnels where you have large budgets to put in because you have large returns on the back end. So let's talk a little bit about what each of these are really good for. Facebook ads are really for when you are actually going to be interrupting somebody in what they're doing. What they're doing is scrolling Facebook or being on Facebook, and so the ads and things that you're going to be placing on Facebook need to be pretty a little bit jarring, just to get them out of the scrolling and then turn that into interest, right? And so yeah, basically you're interrupting them, and so it needs to be catchy enough to stop them, divert them, and move them to your site where you can use them. Google ads are great for converting keyword traffic. That is, somebody who's actually searching for a solution, they're typing that into Google. If you find that what you're selling really goes towards that, then Google ads are really the best platform for what you're doing. And then YouTube can be really effective for people who are looking for how-to content. How I build a website, how do I build, how do I do marketing, all of those kind of how-to type things. if you get your ad on YouTube, it's gonna have a lot more traction than, say, some of those other places. One of the really important things that I want to note here about paid traffic is that it can be turned on and off, and that's actually really important for figuring out new things, testing new things. And so, that ability to turn it on and off doesn't come with some of the other traffic solutions. The next is borrowing traffic from an influencer. Influencers can have, it's an important traffic source because, if you pick the right influencers, they will already have done a lot of the work that it takes to gather people and to start sharing their message with those people. And so if you can find somebody who is in a similar niche, in a similar, similar area, but maybe not exactly the same, then you can start to diversify your audience, and you can start to grow your audience and things like that. We're going to want to gauge the influencers that are around us that we're working on getting into by, I'm going to separate them into 3 different categories. We'll talk about the A players. Those are people who have, a lot more audience than you do. So A players are people who have, a league more followers than you do, things like that. People who have roughly the same number of followers, we'll call those B players. And then people who have significantly less followers will be ranked as C players. So most of the time, you're going to want to be focusing on collaborating with B players, or people who have roughly the same number of people in their audience as you have in your audience, so that you can both benefit each other the most, right? If you're working with an A player, either you have to spend a lot of money to get, their attention, or it's a lot of work to get into their realm of existence, and a lot of times that's not actually as effective as working with somebody who is roughly the same size as you are. And then a lot of times you will want to work with some of the C players, in a similar way that a bigger player could work with you. You can work with smaller people, and that's actually really good because people don't stay small forever, and you can they can get bigger than you and help you out in the future. So one of the tactics that I've used in the past for figuring out who it is that I'm going to be working with is creating a calendar and making a list of 30 people, and maybe it doesn't have to be 30 people to start with, but making a list of 30 people who you want to work with, right? In the future, you want to work with some of these people. And so taking 10 minutes every day and thinking about or connecting with one person from that list every day. So that's why 30 is, because it gives you time to it gives you time to start building that relationship with influencers, things like that. And so mark out your calendar, pick 30 people who can who you can start working with. And in the beginning, just work on creating tons of value for that person. Text them or email them and say, hey, I'd love to, find some way that I can, be beneficial for you. Right now, not asking anything, and I just want to grow my relationships with you. And so, as you continue to work on, growing your relationships with people, then joint ventures and other things can start to come naturally as you are working with influencers. So anyway, let's go on to the next one, and then we'll break for some questions for a moment. So the next stage in getting traffic is all about creating consistent content on multiple platforms. Like, for example, adding people to your email list is a great way of building your own traffic. Getting subscribers on your YouTube channel and growing the number of people subscribed to you on social media, these are all ways of growing your ability to direct traffic. So basically, you have all these people now who are looking at you, and now you can simply direct the traffic. You can say, where do I want these people to go? Imagine it like waking up and deciding you want to have 10,000 people see an offer you're interested in, directing them to, if you have a large audience, who have received a lot of value from you in the past, then you can go through and say, hey, here is this offer, and just email it out. That doesn't cost you really anything to email that out. Same thing with creating a video on YouTube and creating an offer in a video and having them go do something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an offer. Maybe it's just you're working on creating a movement, and so you're inviting them to take some kind of action in their own life, right? So this is all about building traffic, creating content that you control, and things like that. Okay, so how do we do that? And I think it mostly just comes down to creating consistent content. Pick a cadence that you want to be outputting content, and you can go through and do that at that cadence. There are a lot of tools out there to help you kind of batch process some of the content that you're making, and then just have that released over time. And one of the beautiful parts about this is that in creating videos or creating blog posts, you are multiplying your time that you get to spend with all of these prospective customers. And every time you add a new piece of content to your platform, that multiplies your time again to all of those hundreds of people or thousands of people who are watching you and your content. So yeah, let's take a minute and stop and break for just some questions. Do you guys want to raise your hand or jump in there if you have any questions about what we've covered so far?
So I think I got, so I'm interested in building traffic, the third one you were talking about. And so it sounds like I'm just doing like videos on YouTube or blog posts. Do you have more? How do I decide which of those that or all, or do you understand my question?
Mm-hmm. So in the next section, we're going to be talking about the customer journey that we're going to be taking people through, and we're going to kind of dive into a little more specifically what you're creating and why you're creating it. So yeah, we'll cover that in just a moment. Cool. So coming up next, let's see. Yeah, so let's talk about the comparisons here between these three just real fast, and then we'll jump into what we're talking about next. So as far as buying traffic, it's very fast. Finding influencers, it's not nearly as fast as buying it, but it's not as but it's faster than creating content over years. The cost is pretty high for buying content. If you're working with a lot of B players, people who are similar in size to you, then the cost is fairly, relatively low, because you're probably going to be introducing your audience to them, and they're going to be introducing their audience to you. So there's benefit on both sides, so the cost can be low. And then I'm putting here the cost for creating content is low, with a caveat that creating content takes a lot of time, and it takes somebody's time. So you might be paying somebody to create content. That is a cost. So the physical cost don't necessarily be there. So buying content is not permanent. Creating long-term joint ventures could be permanent, but maybe doesn't have to be. And building content definitely is permanent. Okay, so the other buddy, the other day, my buddy called me up and said, "You'll never guess who just called me." To which I wondered who, and he replied, "It was my ex-girlfriend Taylor." Now, Taylor is a cute girl that I dated in high school, however long ago, and Taylor got married to a nice guy a few years after graduation. But as things happen, sometimes there were some struggles, and she found herself single once again. So Taylor had called my buddy, and she wanted to relay an experience she thought that he would appreciate. Taylor had been contacted by all of our mutual high school friends, and he was calling to say that he had liked her since high school, and even though she hadn't been single for very long, he was happy to step in and fill that role in her heart. And he was ready. So I just wanted you to imagine for a second, not only are you single, but newly divorced, and someone is calling to profess their undying love and ask you to start a relationship. Yeah, that's just a little awkward, but Taylor, like you or me, tactfully declined the relationship and tactfully declined a first date. He was shut down, and I bet that stung just a little bit. And on top of that, it is a little creepy. So I want to tell you another story, and this one is my personal story. 3 years ago, I found myself single and open to new opportunities for growth. In an effort to grow my circle of influence in my business, I started adding people to my Facebook friends list who I had some connection with in the past. And one such person was Kimberly, a girl I went on one date with in high school and who I thought was especially pretty. Later on that week, she accepted my request and started messaging me on Facebook. She too had found herself single, and after some conversation on Facebook, I asked her if she wanted to grab lunch and just talk and catch up. She said, yeah, that works great. So that Friday we went to lunch and talked for about an hour. After lunch, I said, I enjoyed this, and I think you did. Can I take you on an actual date? And so she agreed, and what followed was about a year and a half of fun dates, trips, and time well spent, culminating in our marriage last July. So as marketers, we're hoping to win business with people who have just barely, we've just barely met them, and we're asking them for their hard-earned dollars. While marketing doesn't need to take as long as courting or marriage, marketing online does need to follow a similar relationship building pattern in growing trust with our audience. We can be consistent, helpful, knowledgeable, so that they can trust that we will do what we say we're going to do. Brent Weaver said, people's trust in you is equal to the number of positive interactions you have over time. So and here Russ Henneberry says, the role of marketing is to move prospects and customers seamlessly and subtly through each stage of the customer journey. So let's look at the customer journey here. And Renee, this is kind of where we're going to talk about what does different types of content mean and where does it live in this process. Okay, so we just talked a lot about traffic, and traffic makes people aware of you. That's really all it does, is it just makes people aware of you. Then what happens is they are going to land on some kind of content that you've created, whether that's a blog post or social media, maybe it's one of your videos, and they're going to start engaging with you on that platform. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to look for some way of having them opt into gated content. So we want to create some methodology for them to get more, but we want something in return instead of it just being free and things like that. So after they've opted in, then we're going to look for them to create some kind of small purchase or perhaps scheduling a demo. There's really two things here. What we're doing is we're looking for them to give us some kind of value back in return. So that kind of can fall into two categories. One, just straight up money helps us to do that. The other is them spending time evaluating our stuff. And so that's where, you know, scheduling a demo comes in, and so there's two different ways of having somebody create some kind of value. And then they're going to get some kind of value from that transaction. And each of these pieces has different content associated with it. So, for example, you know, traffic, you know, that could come from an ad. There's some content there that we've created. You know, the content from the social media and things like that. All of that is content. You know, and then there's pages that help us do the gated content. And so what this really looks like is, and this is where some people call it a funnel, some people call it, you know, a value ladder. So this looks like kind of this process here. We offer something for free. We just talked about that a little bit. Offering a tripwire. A tripwire represents that small ticket item. Offering a core product. This is really your bread and butter. It's what you're going to want to be doing every day, you know, and twice on Saturday. This is your core product. And, you know, a profit maximizer are things that you want to you know, have over the top, but that are, you know, smaller percentages of people are willing to do that, and, you know, it probably costs more. And so for each of these different pieces, we can craft a follow-up series for helping people get to the next stage, helping people get to the next level. And, you know, people are going to fall out of this funnel at some point, and so that's where following up with them and helping them get back on track, or helping them to get a new, you know, a different offer that they're more interested in. That's where this sales funnel, or, you know, value ladder comes in. And so going back to this, that's where the ascend happens. So we're going to have, you know, all of these pieces with all of their return paths. And so if you look at this right here, you can see all the dotted arrows. The dotted arrows represent those return paths. They help you to, you know, continue the conversation. If somebody's not ready to purchase something with you yet, then, you know, it's a great opportunity for you to send them back to another piece of content, and then move them along the path forward from there. Coming, you know, next in our customer journey is we do really want people to start advocating for us, right? We want to start sharing successful customers and having case studies and testimonials happen for us on our site. And so we can create content that is specifically geared towards helping somebody to do those things for us. You know, we can send out an email blast that says, hey, you know, we'd love to get some testimonials or case studies. You know, we'd love to, you know, offer you some content for you know, exchange for doing that. And then next, you know, when people are really having a great experience with us and our brand, then, you know, we can have content that helps people share what we're doing. And so what I'd like to do is kind of dive a little bit deeper into what's happening here. So there's two kinds of content in this process here. There's ungated content, and that's the content that anybody can consume. That's the blog posts, the engagements on your social media, your video views. And then there is gated content, which requires some kind of transaction, such as the email opt-in or the payment process to access. So right here, what we have is, this is the ungated content right there. And then for here we have the gated content. And so let's dive into those two different pieces and how to create, you know, what each of those are and how to create those kinds. Okay, so creating ungated content, blog posts, articles, podcasts, videos, social media posts sometimes, and I'll get to why that's sometimes in the next slide here. So creating ungated content that converts. So the first step is we want to begin with the end in mind. So what we want to do is go back to our our process and figure out, which step are we at? Are we moving people from, the engage step to the subscribe step? If so, that's our purpose. That's what we want to do. So begin with the end in mind. We're looking to create offer? So begin with, are we to offer awareness? Or we just want somebody to know that we have an offer out there, and that in the future they might be, that might be a good offer for them? Or are we looking for actual leads where we need to get, an opt-in? We need to get, perhaps even sales happening. And what does the process? Okay, so step number 2 is, choosing the topic for this article. So for example, what does the prospect need to learn or believe or know before they're willing to take the desired actions? And so a lot of times we talk about this in NLP as presuppositions. What do we want them to assume or suppose, and how do we get them into that state of creating those assumptions? And so that's right here, is choosing the topic. What do we want them to know? So for example, one example I saw recently was, somebody who's selling marathon equipment. One of the things that they would like people to suppose to begin with is, hey, you can run a marathon. So they have a piece of, ungated content that says, that talks about, how do you go about, are you ready to run a marathon? And using that ungated content helps them to create that, that feeling of, yeah, I could run a marathon. That's what it takes to run a marathon. I could do that. Now they're in a state where they can move forward, and now we can offer them, hey, now here's 10 things you could use to that you need to run a marathon, things like that. Also, things to think about inside of this are, what barriers must the prospect overcome before they're willing to take the desired action? And what is the prospect researching before taking the action that we want them to take? So after we've come up with the topic and we've written our article, the next thing is we need to edit for consumption. In YouTube terms, that means creating a really good title, creating a really good thumbnail that's catchy, and things like that. Having good introductions. We want the content to get started quickly so that people fill that and move forward with it. And then working on our transitions between different pieces in the content. If we're transitioning between pitches or between offers. One of the things that I love watching is Linus Tech Tips, and it's always interesting for me to go through and see how he transitions to his sponsors. And he really has some humor around transitioning to the sponsors. And so but it's not just transitioning to offers. The transitions between different stages is also important. And format. I want to make sure that our text is easy to read if we're writing a blog post, that things are easy to read and easy to use. That means using bullet points and other punctuation, and that it's not just like a big huge block of text, because that's difficult to read and doesn't create much engagement there. Okay, step 4 for creating ungated content is give it some teeth. And what I mean by that is we want to be able to target these people later on. And so what that means is that even though they're consuming this content, that's expressing interest, that's expressing intent, that they're interested in whatever it is that article talks about. And so for Facebook and for Google and for basically all of the socials, they allow you to create tracking pixels so that later on you can go and pay to have an ad placed in front of those people to have them take the next step in your action. But also, it doesn't have to necessarily be pixels or retargeting. You know, if you're making a relevant offer from inside your content, that works really well too. And so, you know, going back to the marathon example, if you have a, you know, if you have that first article, are you ready to run a marathon? Perhaps you have, you know, the next step is, you know, 10 things you could buy to, you know, to be ready for your marathon. That could be, you know, almost like an ad inside your own web page. And so, yeah. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about gated content. So we had the ungated content, and now we're going to talk a little about the gated content. Reports and white papers are a good one. You know, things that you've done a little bit of work to put together. Templates and cheat sheets. I know Austin is working on, you know, templates for a lot of the different legal things that are, you know, fairly common and fairly consistent. Those types of things are great for creating, you know, some gated content. Webinars, you're asking for somebody to sign up to spend some time with you. Webinars are a great type of gated content. One of my favorites though is actually apps or plugins. So if you have, you know, if you have a really simple app, and that's, I'm a developer, so, you know, I like these kinds of things. If you have an app or a plugin, you know, offering that type of thing for free, but they have to sign in to get to it, it makes actually a lot of sense. I mean, it makes sense for the people because they are, you know, you have to have an account to use the app. You know, that makes an opportunity for you to, you know, then go through and help out later and you know, add additional value through your email series. So this is something that I use, is, you know, offering an app or a plugin to people. Okay, so creating gated content that converts. Interestingly, it's actually very similar. You want to begin with the end in mind. Just because we are now gated doesn't mean that we also want to have, you know, them moving across to the next level or the next step in our process. So begin with the end in mind. You know, choose the topic. We want to edit for consumption. We want to give it some teeth. We want to know where they're at in the process through pixels or through, you know, offers on the page or both. And, you know, finally, this is the one piece that's different, is before they actually get the content, we are going to have a squeeze page with some compelling copy. So, you know, we want to say, hey, you're going to get this thing. All you have to do is give us a your contact information or whatever it is we're asking for. And so let me just make sure I define that for anybody who isn't familiar with it. A squeeze page is just it's just a website page that only has one action for them to take. So a lot of times, if you look at websites, they'll have, you know, a header across the top with a whole bunch of links. They have a footer across the bottom with a whole bunch of links, and, you know, there's, you know, 12 or 15 different ways, you know, places somebody could go to navigate away from that page and move on to the next one. A squeeze page, the purpose for it, or the purpose for a landing page, is just to have, there's only two actions they can take. Either they can do what you asked and put in their contact information, or second, they can leave the page, and that's just by closing the page. And so that helps us to understand what's happening on the page, because if they just leave the page, then we know that there's an issue with, you know, the ad scent, that, you know, or that the continuity between what you're doing isn't there enough. So they landed on that page, but then they didn't take the action. So there's a little bit of work left to do. So let's see. So here I have this, and this is available for anybody who would like to download it. This is a traffic system planning canvas. And so what we're going to do is you can take it and fill it out. It'll be, you know, fill outable. It's a fill outable PDF. And you can say, you know, what is the content that I have at each of these steps, and, you know, what am I going to do to create the success in that particular stage of my process. And this seems to be fairly one-dimensional. There's only one path. But I also want to say that it doesn't have to be one-dimensional like that. You might have 5 or 6 different ad campaigns. You might have 100 different blog posts. You might have 4 or 5 different opt-ins. And so depending on where you're at in the process and what you're trying to accomplish, it makes you can have a whole bunch of different ones, and this just kind of is an example of one of each. Do you guys have any questions about this worksheet?
And that can be downloaded on your website, John?
Yeah, so if you go to funnelpress.com/go/believe, let me put it, I put it at the beginning. Let me see if I can. That's I was going to put it at the end, but I ran out of time, so. So right here, funnelpress.com/go/believe. And then I will email that to you, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
so,
great, thank you.
Say what?
No, I just said thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have right at the moment. I left about 15 minutes that we could just answer just generic questions that we can talk about or whatever people want to discuss. So yeah, let's open it up to questions.
So John, one of my questions is, what does a typical engagement look like with with you and your company? So say I was a business and I came to you and said, hey, I'm interested in your services. What does that look like, and how does that process unfold?
Sure. So the way that I go about new clients and new clientele is I go through I go through a process called discovery, and it's a free process. It's basically I find that it's really difficult to just say, hey, here's a price for a website, go, right? Because you don't really know what entails in that, and I don't know necessarily what your specific pains or problems are. So I go through a process where we talk about, number one, who is your customer, and we get specific with that. We talk about what are you selling them, and then we talk about what strategies could we implement in a proposal or in your website to really get you a great return on your investment. And then finally we do a proposal meeting where after we've gone through, and that's several different meetings, but we talk about what that's going to entail, and duration and things like that. And so then that's a proposal meeting, and then we kick it off, and that's how it goes. So so it's really I have 3 or 4 meetings that I go through with somebody, and I call that the strategic digital marketing workshop. And so it's a free workshop that I go through, and at the end of the workshop, what you're supposed to get out of the workshop is really a strategy for how to implement a great website, right? And so you don't have to necessarily, at the end of that meeting, you don't have to necessarily use me to go implement that. If you wanted to take that strategy and it's complete enough that you can have somebody else implement it if you wish, but that's kind of where I'm at. I go through and I make that strategy, and we create that, and it does create a lot of value for you and your company, and then we move forward in a project. So that's how my process works to get started, at least.
Okay, great. So I mean, is your real focus developing and designing websites, or is it also developing digital marketing strategies and really following through with those? What is your primary focus as a company?
Yeah, so I find that a lot of times they kind of do go hand in hand a lot. a lot of times the you know the structure of the website is really important for helping to facilitate all of the different you know aspects of digital marketing. And so you know we do definitely you know work to help create websites, but also you know the point of a website is not to have a website. The point of a website is to get you more leads and customers and sales. And so if the website isn't actually doing that, then it's failing at its job. And so you know we implement all of the marketing tactics and strategies so that your website can do what it's supposed to do, and that's you know get you more leads, sales, and things like that. But at the same time, like you know, I can you know create marketing strategies and things. So yeah.
Great, thank you, John.
John, I was a little bit unclear. So with this digital marketing workshop, is that a free workshop or is that a for pay? How I didn't get that.
Yeah, so it's a free workshop. Basically, it's the process that I go through to help create a proposal for a project. And so you know it is a free process, but at the same time, you know it takes several meetings and you know quite a few hours to go through that. And so I want to make sure that people are getting value from you know that process, even because they are you know spending you know a few hours putting together you know what they actually need. And so so it's a you know it's a process for helping me create a proposal for somebody, but at the same time you know giving them value for the work that I'm doing. So awesome. Any other questions?
I think, John, for me, what have been some of your, you know, and you don't necessarily need to disclose your clients, but, you know, what have been some of your successes, or, you know, maybe walk us through a case study, you know, talking a little bit about some of your results and some of the, you know, the goals that you've achieved and helped companies achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see.
You have a, you know, a website that you could bring up for us that you've done, something you're proud of, something that, you know, has been effective for you, or just something we could see?
Yeah, so you know, one of the sites that I'm working on right now for Believe is the Believe in Healing website. And so it's not necessarily public yet, but I can show it to you guys, and I think it's a fun project I'm working on at the moment. So let's see. So
You're getting.
you know, this what?
Go ahead.
So yeah, this is you know what we're currently working on for Believe, and you know it's at this point it's fairly simple, but you know the point being, you know they're going to give it's going to give Austin and the team a you know great opportunity to share the stories that are going to make a difference for moving forward. And so so yeah, it's pretty fun to see what they're going to do with it.
What is this? This looks really nice. Have you've done the design? Have you developed the content? What has been your scope in this project, John?
Yeah, so so at this point, I developed the site itself. A lot of the content, you know, I put together the content with the help of Austin, and so they went through and they tweaked a lot of the things that that I recommended or said. So yeah, basically, you know, Austin wrote a lot of, you know, some of this, and you know, some of it was things I kind of recommended and stuff like that. So
so let me jump in there for a minute.
Yeah.
I'll give a little testimonial.
Say what?
Said I'll give a little testimonial. So John has been working on the site. Basically, we just sat down with John, told him what the goals were, and then John came up with everything, did everything on it. We were really impressed. He even put in content suggestions, and then basically all that I did was just update them some, make them so they were a little more legally compliant with the way we said things. But everything on here was pretty much his idea. And they went above and beyond. I think it's the lecture story link there. I had made a PDF version of this. He just took it on his own and made it into something that's a lot better for people to input information going through. And he just took the proactive step with that. So I really enjoyed working with him on it and getting a lot back on the site where there's a lot of suggestions and proactive input. And then I just have to say, oh yeah, we can just tweak this a little bit to say that way. So anyway, that helps flesh that out a little bit.
And I'd like to just do my own little testimonial because he did my website for mine. And, you know, I just have a really creative mind, and I'm like, I want to do this and this and this. And some of the stuff, he's just really good at, if you want to do something, he'll figure out a way to make it happen. You know, if he even tries, you know, he'll even, he creates his own apps, or, you know, his own little pieces, and then, or he'll go and find somebody else that did it and tweak it the way that you want it. And he's just really quite miraculous, making things happen the way exactly you want it.
Thank you guys. This form looks really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was a good form. I thought it turned out well. So. Cool. Well, if we don't have anything else, then we'll move on and get on with our day.
Thanks, John. It was really awesome today.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.